This video is brought to you by Squarespace.
Aang, I know you're upset. And I know how hard it is to lose the people you love. But you still have a family. Sokka and I, we're your family now.
Katara and I aren't gonna let anything happen to you. Promise.
Ending a cartoon can be hard. After creating so many memorable episodes with characters everyone loves, it must be difficult to find the right way to move on from such a time and close the door on a series. God knows Nickelodeon can't close the door on SpongeBob already, just end it, Jesus Christ! So many cartoons with so many great finales, but for Avatar: The Last Airbender, the great finale was planned from the start. A lot of the cartoons we grew up watching would go week to week with random differentiating plots, never having a consistent storyline except being hinted at slightly here or there to end up in the finale. But Avatar: The Last Airbender had one goal in mind. It knew how it was going to eventually end, and it did it beautifully. You can basically say that this was most kids' introduction to anime. It took inspirations from animes and kept a consistent storyline that every kid would tune into each week to discuss the craziness of each episode. There weren't many that did that. Even shows like Teen Titans or Kids Next Door had its majority around random plots and self-contained episodes. But Avatar made sure that every single self-contained plot furthered itself towards the grand finale. First off, I'm not going to discuss Legend of Korra. I have never watched that shiz and do not plan to. For me, everything with the OG Avatar ended so goddamn perfectly that I'm perfectly fine with having my knowledge of the story end right there. If you don't know what Avatar: The Last Airbender is, and if you don't, you really gotta go check yourself before you wreck yourself. It's a series about this 100-year-old badass named Aang and his journey to master the 4 elements of his world in order to save it. He must master water, earth, air, and fire. He was this thing known as the Avatar, and not the one with the fucking blue people. They should have just named that movie Pandora's Pocahontas to avoid confusion. But Aang is the Avatar. There have been many avatars, but Aang is the most avatariest of avatars. He once trapped himself in a big ol' snowball deep below the water and wasn't awakened for 100 years, until these two nerds, Sokka and Katara, discovered him. From then on, they journeyed with him across the lands to learn and conquer. They all become 3 best buds for life. Very early on in the show, we learned that Aang must learn how to master all 4 elements before a certain comet arrives by the end of the summer. From the start, we knew the time frame the show would consist in. The show ran from 2005 to 2008, 3 years, 3 seasons. Each season was themed around one of the elements Aang has not yet mastered. So as a kid, you're just eagerly awaiting that grand spectacle of a finale to come when he's mastered every element. One of the very first videos to blow up this channel was on the Ed, Edd n Eddy finale, and how big of a fucking banger that was. So now I want to discuss the Avatar finale, but not in just one long video. I want to do it in 3 parts. I want to discuss the journey it took to reach its end. It's one of the greatest cartoon finales to ever exist. In each season, the show would get a dramatic boost in quality, starting off pretty freaking good until reaching actual masterpiece levels of quality. To begin, we have to start with Book 1, Water. Water is the first element Aang must master. One of the people to awaken him from the snowball was Katara, who is a waterbender herself. Yet there's no waterbenders where Katara originates from, as they've all been fucking murdered. The biggest thing in Avatar: The Last Airbender is its themes of genocide and war. Everyone knows the very famous line,
Then, everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked.
That line basically means that while Aang was sleeping, the Fire Nation of Fire went around the world wreaking havoc on all who cross their paths so they can be the sole rulers. This creates an incredible backstory for the world and allows for an intensely dark and dramatic moments throughout the show. You also have Prince Zuko. He is a part of the Fire Nation, but he is exiled. The only way he can receive redemption is by capturing the Avatar. So throughout the show, you always have this little cat and mouse dynamic going on while Aang's on his normal quest.
He was one of the best friends I ever had. And he was from the Fire Nation, just like you. If we knew each other back then, do you think we could have been friends too?
But Zuko's not just a cat. He's also one of the best written characters in any cartoon ever. With a heartbreaking backstory and emotions that every single angsty kid or teen would relate to growing up, you just can't help but sympathize with him.
I meant you no disrespect. I am your loyal son.
Rise and fight, Prince Zuko.
I won't fight you.
You will learn respect and suffering will be your teacher. I looked away.
Besides learning about each element, Aang learns control and empathy and life lessons that go beyond fucking Jesus. Katara and Sokka learn things too. Katara learns how to remain calm and forgive throughout the show, and Sokka learns how to be more open-minded and respectful. You also got Toph and Shiz, but I'll talk about her in part 2. Okay, so now that we know about the main characters of season 1, let's talk about their journey. Okay, so in order to Aang to learn waterbending, they have to travel to the north. But their constant stops along the way allow the characters to get constantly fleshed out every single episode, even in the smallest way possible. Aang's first stop on the way is at his old home, that he used to crash at before he took a big ol' nap. But of course, no one's fucking alive. I just told you about genocide and the murders, you doof. So here we get an incredibly heartbreaking scene where Aang's emotions are lit out for a moment until the friends he has now are able to calm him down. From this point on, we knew that these three were going to stick by each other's side. Soon as they head back out, they get involved with the local town, and they're one of the first to find out that the Avatar is back and is alive. We also meet Suki, but she becomes more important in the later seasons. But here's when Sokka starts to learn how to stop being so arrogant, and Katara learns to calm down more. Here Aang learns he can't get carried away with his fame, and soon the gang continues to travel towards the north. But they stop at an Earth Kingdom along the way. Okay, so here we get some more world building. Avatar is so damn cool that they made the mailing system a fun and exciting part of their world. When a freaking postal service sticks with you from a cartoon while you're growing up, you know something was special about that show. Aang meets an old man who rules the town who turns out to be one of his childhood friends, who is old as fuck now. Which is kinda dark, but Aang embraces it head on with acceptance.
Oh, Aang, it's good to see you. You haven't changed a bit. Literally.
So as the gang continues to head north, they stop at multiple places and meet many people who will teach them incredible things that they'll remember throughout life. Aang fucking dies and becomes a ghost for a moment in order to talk to the past incarnations of avatars. And we get some chilling moments where Aang enters an avatar state and goes ham on some Fire Nation.
I can help you face the threat, but only if you are ready.
I'm ready.
Ready?
But each episode is a new lesson. It's always serving some amount of character development. Every episode they get better and improve. And they don't really fall back on past mistakes. If they do, they almost instantly remember why they shouldn't be like that anymore. Except, okay, there is this weird thing that Aang constantly does throughout season 1. Like he's learning all of these incredible life lessons on his journey, but he does some unmistakable shit. Like there's an entire episode where the gang travels with a divided group through a dangerous canyon. This group is a real Romeo and Juliet kind of group. One says that High School Musical 3 is better than 2, and the other one says that High School Musical 2 is better than 3 because, you know, they're right. But once they cross the canyon and make it to the end, they begin to fight about their past heritage.
Too bad we can't rewrite history. You thieves stole our sacred orb from Jin Wei.
You tyrants unjustly imprisoned Wei Jin for 20 long years.
So Aang straight up uses his avatar status to change their history and lie about it, creating peace in the process.
No, I mean, I really knew them. I might not look it, but I'm 112 years old. I was there 100 years ago on the day you're talking about. First of all, Jin Wei and Wei Jin weren't enemies. They were brothers. Twins, in fact. And they were 8. And most importantly, they were just playing a game. The sacred orb from the legend? That was the ball.
But the dude's still straight up lying to them. Like, what the fuck, Aang?
That's some luck you knew Jin Wei and Wei Jin.
You could call it luck. Or you could call it lying.
What?
I made the whole thing up.
You did not. That is so wrong.
You're abusing your overpowered status. But later on when he sees people are gliding around in the air, he gets jealous because they're not airbenders. So he seriously tries to one-up a cripple in a wheelchair, who can't walk, so instead he flies. But Aang legit gets mad at him at first. But I'm stating this because the very, very small faults in Aang's character are things the show fixes throughout the series. His flaws are subtle and may seem harmless at first. For such a high status as the Avatar, they are flaws because Aang is still a kid. And the journey towards the finale and becoming worthy of that status is something that the show perfects to a T.
You are not ready! You are too weak! You think I am weak? Avatar Roku. I have mastered the elements 1,000 times in 1,000 lifetimes. You will teach the Avatar firebending.
Yes. I will teach you.
Really? That's great!
It's like Season 1 presents us all of the flaws in each character and how it quickly improves upon them. It's a giant melting pot of incredible writing. And a lot of this does sound like holy dolly normal stuff that normal plots have, but Avatar does it so insanely well that it basically becomes an example for that kind of writing in and of itself. While the animation and direction isn't as good in the first season as it is in the following seasons, it kinda adds to my point that the show just builds up into one masterclass in a quality finale. The finale of the first season brings the events of everything we've journeyed towards throughout the book in one massive climax. A climax so good, M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong made a parody movie about it. In order to give us a way for Aang to master waterbending, his friend Katara, who's already been a waterbender, fully masters it herself and will help Aang master it while mastering the others, because this boy turned into a massive fucking frog demon water master for a moment. Look, it got a little crazy, but it was incredibly cool and iconic, and I lost where I was going with this. But yo, check out the insane use of lighting in the finale. In my opinion, Season 1 is definitely the weakest season in the show, but in a show as great as this, it's not really a bad thing. Overall, Season 1 of Avatar: The Last Airbender is simply an introduction. It introduces us to this world. It gives us an introduction to the depth of these characters. It gives us an introduction to the lessons we learn along the way. The show has inspired me growing up with its delicate badassery of showing just how good a story can be, even if it's marketed towards kids. But it's much more than that. It had no right to snap as hard as it did. You know, the entire process of Aang learning how to master all four elements shows he can overcome a challenge. It's difficult for him, but he pushes past it to learn. Something that isn't difficult and is actually incredibly easy to get started on is creating a beautiful and stunning website through this week's sponsor, Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one platform with no updates, no patches, no plugins, whatever. You can create a stunningly beautiful website yourself, just like I did. With 24/7, 365-day support, you can guarantee that you'll always have someone to help you with your site, day or night, and they won't go dark like Aang did for 100 years. Start your free trial today at squarespace.com/24framesofnick and use code 24framesofnick to get 10% off your first purchase. Thanks to sponsors like Squarespace, I'm able to afford the complete series of Avatar on Blu-ray. I mean, just look how stunning this bad boy is. Ooh! So head on over to squarespace.com/24framesofnick and use code 24framesofnick for 10% off your first purchase. Thanks to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. Thank you to every beautiful soul who supports me on Patreon, and to that guy who wished me a good morning at the gas station at 3 AM instead of a good night, a very special thank you to you.